Hey everyone, Aidan here from Push Square with our review of Elden Ring Nightreign with our review of Elden Ring Nightreign, a very different kind of game from FromSoftware. I've been on reviewing duties for this one, so let's see if it's worth checking out in our PS5 review. Elden Ring Nightreign is a vastly different kind of FromSoftware experience. It's taking the hallmark, tough as nails combat and applying it to a co-op title that takes inspiration from battle royales and roguelikes. But with these core changes, does that FromSoft magic remain? Well, Nightreign might not be what most people want or even like from the developer, but it sure is a lot of fun. Nightreign exists in a sort of parallel universe to the main game where players are tasked with repulsing the night. I view Nightreign in a sort of similar light to the lore, since this is effectively a spin-off that runs parallel to the main game. It's not Elden Ring 2 or anything like that, instead reusing many assets from the base game to deliver what FromSoft calls a session-based RPG. Now what that translates to is a day and night cycle that teams of 3 must survive. 2-day sections, roughly 15 minutes each, where you must gain runes to level up and collect weapons to make your build before a battle royale styled circle closes in on you. 2 nights, which are randomised bosses taken from Elden Ring and previous Souls games, and finally Night Lord boss fights, a boss unique to Nightreign and the ultimate challenge of each run. Respawning is an option during the day segments at the cost of a level, but if all 3 players die during one of the 3 boss fights across a run, you're going to need to start all over again, and this introduces the risk and reward of Nightreign where every second of a run matters. The intricacy of the base game's build crafting is very much at the forefront of Nightreign, albeit in a new streamlined capacity. With 8 classes to choose from, each with a passive, alternate and ultimate ability, these act as the foundation for each run's build. Whether it was the Duchess's ability to repeat damage just done to an enemy, or the Wilder's distance closing grapple, there's a little something for each playstyle across these classes and plenty of synergies to mess around with. There are certainly some favourites. I barely touched the Executioner, yet I couldn't get enough of Iron Eye, but these are only the beginning, as a build is made or broken out in the field. Now Nightreign completely removes armour from the equation, so players can focus solely on the weapons. Of course, you've got your usual things to consider, like elemental status, the Ash of War, which is now locked to the weapon, and of course the type of weapon itself. But most importantly to Nightreign are the passive bonuses, because those will influence whether you pick up a weapon that you may never actually use. With 6 weapon slots, each has a potential to enhance your build, with passives like HP restoration upon enemy kills, increased damage negation on low health, or even adding an elemental damage type to every weapon in your inventory. You aren't just looking for a weapon that works for your playstyle, but the weapon that works for your build, because you don't have to equip these weapons for the passives to apply. They just need to be in your inventory. And that's when the roguelike influences are really felt as you drop into this latest rendition of the Lands Between. In my first hours, it was a mad scramble to collect any runes possible, hitting up the closest points of interest to take down bosses which would drop runes and perks or weapons, and then collecting additional healing flasks at Marek Estates, all in the desperate hope to find the ultimate build. As you can expect, sometimes that just doesn't happen, as the RNG gods aren't always on your side. Eventually, however, you will become more familiar with how the map works, discovering its secrets and reliable aspects, so you can then formulate a plan to maximise your chances of a better build. And this is where Elden Ring Nightreign really started to click for me. So for example, dilapidated churches have a boss to defeat, often one of the easiest of the bunch, and they would always have a stone sword's key somewhere in the vicinity. That means with a stone sword key you can then take on an Everjail, and by beating the bosses at an Everjail you usually would be rewarded with runes, meaning you could get your level up a lot quicker. Most camps are marked by an elemental type, meaning the rewards from beating that boss will relate to that elemental type. Furthermore, each of the Night Lords has an elemental weakness, so it's in your interest to take on the camps that relate to the final boss. And then if you want to take your new elemental weapon to the next level, underground mines always have a troll who would always drop a level 2 smithing stone. So with this knowledge, runs become an exercise of streamlining where you'll begin to know whether you're ahead or behind where you should be as you reach the end of your first day. It's an invigorating feeling as you and your squad form a plan and synergize, working together to take down the ultimate challenge. However, Nightreign doesn't want you getting overly familiar or comfortable with a run, so it has a number of tricks up its sleeve. The map, for one, while not procedurally generated, has a number of forms where points of interest are mixed around. I have to say, after a few dozen hours with the map, it can get a bit samey as points of interest are copied and pasted around with just varying enemy types inside. However, there are also shifting earth events to mix things up, where the map can drastically change to include things like a lava-filled crater or a scarlet rot forest. And then there are these randomized events, like when my team was befilled by a curse which reduced our health pool. We had the opportunity to defeat a boss and rid ourselves of the curse, but the circle drew us in too quickly and our run was essentially doomed. You can also be drawn out of your run to face one of the previously defeated Night Lords, which can prove disastrous.
What the hell? This is one of the bosses?
But if you manage to band together and actually defeat them, you will be rewarded with runes and perks. So there's a lot of depth to the basic gameplay loop of Nightreign, and the game smartly opens up more as you play it. So there are classes that you unlock by completing secret quest lines, world events revealed by defeating Night Lords, and even 20 something hours into the game, I was still encountering new challenges. And all of that is without even mentioning the Night Lords themselves. There are 8 of these to take down across the game. Disappointingly, each fight takes place in the same sandy plain, although they do all come with their own flavour, whether it's the madness-fueled equilibrious beast, the gracious ogre, or the sword-wielding 3-headed dog-like creature called Gladius. With the gameplay loop and the grind of the previous day and night cycles, reaching the Night Lords is incredibly daunting. All of your gear, all of your passive abilities and buffs are on the line, and there's a palpable tension that, dare I say, may even supersede that of the base game. These bosses can be really tough, and losing out to them is heartbreaking, especially since you have grinded for about half an hour to 40 minutes to get to this very point. However, beating them is a euphoric achievement, and I had multiple occasions where I jumped from my chair in victory. It's really invigorating stuff. But once you have beaten all 8 bosses that the game has to offer, what is there left to do? Well, depending on your squad skill level, completing the game will likely take you upwards of 30 hours. It's a meaty multiplayer offering already, but it goes beyond the Night Lords. There's a grind for relics, which are stat buffs that are unlocked with each run, and these can be applied to your character, acting as extended foundations for your builds. There's a big variety of these things, so you really can play around to really push certain element types, certain types of perks that really help out your team. There's a lot to play around with here. Then there are remembrances for each class, which are mini quests to complete when out in the field, and of course there's this mark currency to unlock new skins for your characters and purchase relics. And FromSoftware has confirmed that more bosses, shifting earth events and even classes will join the fray in post-launch, but it doesn't have that typical live service endgame feeling to it, and I suspect that once the Night Lords have been defeated, a lot of people are just going to move on from the game. Whether a lack of true endgame is a real issue or not is down to the player, but I would be inclined to say that a completable multiplayer game is a good thing. Something to consider though in the quest to complete Nightreign is whether you're playing with randoms or with friends. The game supports solo runs and solo matchmaking, but it's clear that playing on your own or even without comms isn't really the way that FromSoftware intended for you to play. Teamwork is crucial in Nightreign, and while communicating is somewhat possible via pings, I always felt like I was missing a crucial part of the experience, even more so when I paired with rogue players who had their own ideas and were running away elsewhere. While there is a penalty for backing out of matches, I also suspect that a lot of solo players will be met with teammates just backing out when a run hasn't gone their way. There were a number of times where we decided to restart as a team, but I think this could be an issue with the full release for solo players. For me as well, there was a noted difference in how much fun I was having with the game when I played with a full team on comms compared to solo queuing and using pings. And lastly, PS5 optimization. It isn't that great pre-launch. While playing on the prioritized framerate mode on PS5 Pro, performance was noticeably shoddy with the framerate frequently tanking as you ran around the map. And with a lack of any real DualSense haptics or adaptive triggers, the PS5 version of the game is somewhat lacking. Although I would suspect that performance will be ironed out a little once there's a couple of patches post-launch. Elden Ring is a very interesting game that's likely going to divide the FromSoftware fans. It's not the handcrafted RPG that we've come to expect from the storied developer, but it does manage to take much of the gameplay depth of Elden Ring and retrofit it into a fast-paced multiplayer experience. While I don't think that it really holds a light to games like Dark Souls 3 or Elden Ring, it isn't really trying to either. This is basically FromSoftware having some fun with its IP. And while obviously I'd rather be playing another dense RPG from this developer, with a squad of friends, I had so much fun with Elden Ring Nightreign. I'm giving the game an 8 out of 10. Thank you everyone for checking out my review of Elden Ring Nightreign. Let me know if you plan to pick it up on PS5 down in the comments below. While you're there, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more PlayStation video content. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this one guys, and until next time, I've been Aaron and this has been Push Square.